Hello, hello.
Testing.
I'm introducing Ariel Griffin, the program officer from Children International, and she's going to share her presentation and PowerPoint with us. Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you. Hello. All right, I was trying to think of a million ways to say like you can take a teacher out of the classroom, but then I was like, I have the opposite doesn't work. But once again, my name's Ariel. Most people know me as Ari. I have a little preacher style. Even when I'm presenting, it feels a little bit more interactive. And so I do have some questions embedded. I also want to just know who is in the room so I can adjust on the fly. My LinkedIn says I'm a freestyle educator. I do everything from the top of the dome. So just want to know which of you are currently working at an iNGO? That tells me so much because I prepared for college students, you know? Okay, so out of those who did not raise your hand, can you just raise your hand if you did not raise your hand as working in an iNGO? All right, you clacks, you're here. Academia, okay, and you're here, and you're here, and you work, okay. Students, yes. Okay. Just one. And we care about the one. All right. So I graduated. My bachelor's degree is from Kansas State University. And thank you for letting me participate in this session today. I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to be with peers. I don't come here assuming that I'm going to say things that are going to teach you something new. As everyone has mentioned, this has been a huge learning opportunity for me. I'm just excited to be in a space with people who are somewhat as excited about technology as I am. And so as we go through this talk, I think it's going to be really important for us to continue to remind ourselves those of us who do work in organizations that formerly did child sponsorship, we have come a long way. I feel like that's worth acknowledging because I remember commercials in the 90s with kids from Africa with flies and really sad music and just like sponsor a child, give $20 a month or $10 a month, and you can change their life, you know? And we have come so far from that. So now it's like, how can we actually partner with them? And it's become so much more participatory. And as someone who half of my family lives in Nigeria, for me, this is really important because we understand. I love seeing, the previous speaker talked about this place in Nigeria where there's innovations happening all over the world, And so to come from a space understanding that the people that we are working with, that they have assets, they have things to offer, they have the solutions to the problems that they're experiencing. And so now we can work together to come to a solution. And it's actually up to the people that we serve to determine if they want us there. Okay, pause the sermon. All right, let's keep going. None of that was on the script. Okay, so in the next 10 minutes or so, and I'm switching slides here. I didn't watch where people clicked, so we're gonna click here. Look, I was the tech person, right? Okay, so in the next 10 minutes or so, this is where we're going. I'm going to talk a little bit about our health equity approach. And I know this is about, technology and how are we digitizing, but I feel like if you understand our approach, then you'll understand why technology was so important for that approach. And so we'll keep going. We'll talk a little bit through that approach, how we really adapted our trainings, the impact. Now I use that word lightly because I got really nervous when I saw how many Mel people were in the room. So we're gonna use the impact as in like we made some type of difference. I'm not gonna speak to things beyond that. And then we'll talk a little bit deeper about that later offline. And then we're also going to talk about how technology is coming in. And this is a work in progress, right? Technology is moving so fast that even as we start work, we're like, oh, there's something new out there. So we're constantly trying to innovate and sometimes catch up, right? And then the last piece is how do we hope to use this for the future? And I'm excited to have more conversations with you all because I think I'm going to leave here with ideas to share with the rest of the team and the organization because of those conversations. So I'm going to put all these up real quick. So as we talk about our health equity approach, we know that equity sometimes has it become a buzzword? If it has, I'm okay with it. But when we talk about it, this comes out of the idea of social accountability. How many of you have heard of the term social accountability? Oh, nice. Okay, this is good. This is good. So really, this is an evidence-based methodology that is really talking about supporting and strengthening systems that are already there. Okay. So this is really important because a lot of times when we're working in places, they have systems, they have services, and we start to ask questions. We're like, if they have them, why aren't they using them? Well, and then we make assumptions that maybe they're just not quality. But sometimes we know that information is really hard to get a hold of sometimes. Sometimes we know that accessibility when it comes to transportation, sometimes we realize that people want to use the services, but then there's stigma around the use of those services. So social accountability acknowledges that those systems exist, but we really talk to the community and we try to understand why might they not be participating in those systems, okay? And then within that space, so our organization, we partnered with CARE Malawi and learned about this methodology. We implemented something called the community scorecard in order to have a participatory process that really brought key stakeholders that would include health service providers, that included service users, adults and youth at Children International. We work across the lifespan, so all the way up to age 24. We worked with community leaders in this process and a lot of other groups in order to really identify what are the services and systems available to you in the health area. In our work, Children International, we really aim at ensuring access to quality health services in communities we serve. In the past, like many organizations similar to us, we duplicated services, right? We're like, hey, you might have a dental clinic, but so do we, right? Maybe this one's easier to come to since you already have to take your picture. But we started to realize that it's not in the best interest of a community in creating opportunities within the community where we are not the ones who have to be there for it to function, right? So we don't want to create systems around ourselves so that when we remove ourselves, they crumble. And so that's what we as an organization had to be really honest about. And if you haven't noticed so far, I'm really honest. And so through health equity in this work, we really work to eliminate preventable health disparities. And we're not just looking at access, but we're ensuring just fairness and just opportunities to attain the highest level of health. We're not talking about just like a minimum standard, something that when you think about your own child, you wouldn't want them to step foot in that place, right? And this is not just us coming in saying this is what we think the standard is, but we're looking nationally, what are they saying this standard is? The community, what do they want their standard to be? They get to make those determinations. And so if you look at the third one here, I think it's important to note that this work, we started the work with social accountability in 2018. And 2022, we had these trainings. And I mean, I would say half the world said the pandemic's done, but the other half knew that people were still getting sick. And so these trainings were conducted virtually, which if you think about just 6 years ago, the idea of having virtual trainings that were engaging people that were deemed just as useful as an in-person, that was utilizing ed tech tools and things to keep things fun and engaging, that was almost unheard of. Right? There were a few teachers in the classroom that were using their smart boards and thinking about flipped classroom methodologies. But overall, especially in the development space, the only thing we knew about virtual was a webinar where you sat and listened, right? And so this was a huge deal for us as an organization to say, you know what? We know that it's not the safest for us to do all of this in person. We know that you're nervous, that you might contract something from interacting with us as an organization, or if there's too many people here. And so we took that virtual. And that was exciting for me. You'll hear more about why in the next session that I'm supposed to present at as we talk about our digital learning work as an organization. And so just for the sake of time, as we continue through this, this is some of the work that we did in our trainings. The purpose was really to ensure that everyone understood the methodology. They knew how to implement it, but they had the ability and time to contextualize this methodology. We were working at multiple levels of the organization. And as we said, it was participatory. So sometimes, when you collaborate, everything takes more time. And so you would have wanted a 1 or 2 day training, but we needed 7 days because it was involving people into the process. And we found that it was worth it. It was worth it to expand the amount of time for training to ensure that everyone felt invested and a part of the process. All right, so as we got to what impact did this training have for us as an organization? One woman from Guatemala, she said during this training process around this community scorecard methodology, it really focused on team involvement, and I have gained valuable understanding about the importance of fostering effective collaboration between local CI members as well as key community actors. And that was exciting for us because we're like, wow, we weren't even talking this way as an organization, let alone the sponsored children and youth that we work with. So it was really cool to see how people were engaging and the ability to bring these key stakeholders together. That was a joy for us as an organization. During this training, we got the opportunity to work with over 200 staff. And really, it was about the team. We couldn't do it by ourselves. It wasn't just about us as an organization or each individual, but everyone played a key role. When we talk about you MEL folks, you've most likely heard of most significant change. So we did some experimentation here. This is a metric that's a little scary because it's not one-sided, right? It's not just like you made an impact. It also could mean that you had no effect, and you could also find out that you had a negative effect. And so we said it was worth it to find out, even if it showed up that we didn't do anything good, nothing useful, better now to know than later, right? And so as an organization, we really found that even through these trainings and through our social accountability work, we heard someone talk earlier, Honduras, something about trash. I don't remember who it was, but we also found that where we were working in Guatemala, Lusaka, La República Dominicana, we found that community members, when they cared about their environment, there were different actions that they took in order to ensure that their environment was the place that they wanted to be, that they were proud of, that they had ownership. And we realized that when they came together and came up with community actions, they were more likely to feel not just ownership, but empowered. So when we talk about motivation, I think playing a role in how you make the change that you want to see in your own community, that is a huge contributor to motivation. And that's what we found through this process. Just some numbers for you. We, as an organization that historically focus on sponsored children and youth, we realized that through a methodology like this one, we could expand our impact. So when we talk about things like scalability, just to realize that we can actually, when we think about the systems and the different stakeholders, our reach all of a sudden increases beyond just the people that we used to traditionally focus on. We're trying to expand this methodology and our work to over 42 sites. We are also ensuring this continuation. It says upward improvement in all core indicators in this community scorecard. We saw improvement. So that was quality of care, availability of health personnel, availability of medicines and supplies. And that wasn't just things that we were providing. That's a change, which is really exciting. So as we get towards the end, because I'm looking at the time, not too bad. All right. Um, so as we get towards the end of this piece, you might be wondering, so what is the technological innovation, right? What is it that you were actually doing when it came to technology? And so for us, this was all pen and paper for a very, very long time. So when you heard about people going door to door with the backpacks and things like that, when we were having conversations with key stakeholders, somebody was taking notes. We were finding out, what is the change that you want to see? What are the actions? Where are your resources? All of that was by paper, and then we were having to put it into an Excel document. What can happen when you're going from paper to Excel right there? What is most likely going to happen? Error, right? Because we're not perfect. And so when you go to Excel and then you go to whatever dashboard or other systems that you're using, it's like, yes, they're now compounded errors. And so as an organization, we were able to acknowledge that because of the pandemic and the pivoting that we had to do during the pandemic, we were now very, very aware of the error that could happen, but we also had the tools in order to adjust for that. And so some of the work that we were able to do is through a partnership with Microsoft. So this was kind of exciting. We're a Microsoft organization. Prior to working at Children International, I came from a school that utilized Google. So that was a learning curve for me to use Outlook. But because our organization has said, okay, we're going to fully be Microsoft, we're going to use Teams, we're going to use all of these things. We partnered with Microsoft and we found out about this opportunity through a hackathon, which was kind of cool. Hacking's not always bad. For those of you who have not experienced hackathons, this is a way to really get you excited about doing something different and innovating. And so through this process, we actually were able to come up with an idea, and we said, we've been doing a lot of this health work by hand. And so that has allowed us as an organization with Microsoft to say, let's try creating an app. This picture screenshot was the launch, and it was the kickoff of our partnership together. And you can see everybody is really excited. Like, those are authentic smiles. They smiled with the eyes and everything. And so we looked here. You can see that we had a lot of information, but this information was kind of on the agency side. But what it looked like for them was this. It was an app that you could easily access. As mentioned earlier, offline capabilities was extremely important. And so we're actually in the process of this right now, where this app is being developed. And as I've sat here, now I have to go back and be like, how are we adding AI to this? Because I don't know. I just think it has to happen now, because now technology is moving so quickly. And so this will allow us, when we're meeting with key stakeholders and when we're talking to communities, that they can access some of these key indicators and select them themselves through this app, that the field officers, because for us, we think it's important for the people we work with to have someone from our organization, because the relational aspect that you heard me speak about when I was over there, it's really important for us. So we don't want to completely eliminate the person. We want to keep the person as a part of it, but we want to eliminate all that human error that can happen when you're transferring between multiple resources. Some of the short-term and long-term goals is that our hope is that as we use technology, obviously optimization and efficiency is extremely important to us. But the reality is we want to move along as the world is moving. I think oftentimes people see iNGOs as behind the work, and we're like, but it's the resources. But at the end of the day, I think technology is an amazing way in order to ensure that everyone can have access. And so as an organization, we believe by incorporating technology, there's some other advantages that happen. For example, when we incorporate technology in the way that we collect information and the way that we come up with community action and things like that, we're actually providing the people we work with opportunities to see how technology can be used for things outside of mobile games or text messages and WhatsApps and sending videos and social media. We're saying like, no, like technology can be used for that communication. That's great. But it can also be used to make the change that you're wanting to see. It's another way for you to say, hey, neighbor over there, I'm going to this community meeting because have you noticed that every time we walk our children to school, there's trash on the way? So now we can use technology for that purpose as well. So as I close, definitely if you have questions, you can ask in the 4:15 session. But when we look to the future, our hope, this has been work that we've been doing in health. But our hope is to expand this to the other areas that we work across the lifespan. This is not just a health initiative. Every sector can have a participatory process in which technology can make that process not easier, because participatory doesn't mean easy, but it can make the process one in which we can actually better ensure outcomes and see the results of the outcomes that we're hoping for in the communities where we work. And so as we wrap up this time, I just want to say thank you again. If you have any questions, my email is here. And once again, I'll see you at 4:15 for the round table.